So my opponent argues that homework is really stressful for students, given that they may take more than one class, so therefore they will have a lot of homework per night. And I think that is a great argument. I completely agree with that. Most students do take more than one classes, depending on the grade level. Usually high school, they take about 5 or 6 electives. Middle school and elementary school, it's a lot less classes, but I agree with her that like the more classes you have, the more homework you will have per night. However, they may have a lot of homework per night, but um, think about how many tests they will have. Sometimes students are challenged with 2 tests per day. So I would like my opponent to think about how much studying is required, especially since, like my opponent said, students usually have more than one class. So, um, in my experience, studying for exams can be really, really stressful. Um, Especially when you have a math and science exam on the same day. That's like two big subjects that you have to study for. So the stress on the mind is just like huge. Um, in high school, the competitive field to get into colleges has increased immensely over the past couple of years. To get into a good college or any real college nowadays, the GPA requirement keeps increasing. I mean, some students take volunteers, some students take honors classes. Um, just the competitive field is just increasing dramatically over the years, which results in students um, facing a lot of pressure to get good grades. And I feel like that pressure is sometimes too much for students to handle. So, yes, homework can be stressful, but like I have stated before, studying for exams can just be a lot more stressful on the mental and physical body. My experience as well. My opponent also argues that most second grade students will receive packets based off what they've learned. I would first like to state that I strongly disagree with that argument. My opponent cannot assume that every school gives out these reference packets. While I'm sure that a small percentage of schools does, you cannot generalize that statement into saying that all second graders receive reference packets. In my experience, I never received packets when I was in second grade regarding all the stuff I was learning. I would pretty much just do my classwork in class, and then I would go home. And in second grade, I really didn't have that much homework anyway. But yeah. Um, and as I mentioned in my affirmative, the pressure for high test scores is stressful. My opponent my opponent argues that kids K through 6 don't test frequently. I would like to remind my opponent that even though that may be true, most students K through 6 don't have a lot of exams. Students 7th through 12 definitely have a lot of exams in high school. Um, Even fifth graders, I'm pretty sure, are required to memorize the states and the capitals. So that's also like a huge exam that fifth graders face. Um, my opponent keeps arguing that excessive amounts of homework can be stressful for students, but I think tests are a lot more stressful because tests usually count for a bigger portion of your grade um, in comparison to homework. Homework is usually like 5 to 10 points, and test is like a huge portion of your grade. If you fail a test, your grade goes down dramatically. But if you don't turn in a homework assignment, I feel like your grade will not decrease dramatically, like getting a bad grade on a test. So I feel like the pressure that students face to get higher test scores, some families really put a lot of pressure on the kids to pass with A's. That means that you really have to study for the test. Yes, homework is stressful. I completely agree with my opponent. I have never liked homework in my own opinion, but I feel like in order for kids K through 12 to really receive a good education, I feel like homework is required because repetition is a key factor in uh, gaining all of the knowledge that you've learned and remembering that knowledge, because you're going to be tested all of those things throughout school. So I feel like homework really helps you engage in the material outside of a classroom environment. I feel like homework really helps you remember everything you did in math class, for example. I feel like it's really necessary to practice all of these steps that you learn in the class outside of class. I know that a lot of students sometimes, when they get home, they have no idea what to do with the homework. And yes, that can be completely stressful, but a lot of the times the teachers go over the homework in class. So I just feel like you really cannot compare homework and test even in the same level. I feel like tests are a whole different level than homework is. I also feel like a lot of students just choose not to do the homework, not because it's hard, but just because they would rather engage in other activities. And I'm not generalizing that statement into a whole spectrum of kids. I'm just saying that some kids just don't really think homework is that hard. They just are lazy. So, yeah, I definitely agree with my opponent. I mean, homework is stressful. It can be, but I feel like if there has to be an education reform on something, I feel like homework isn't that big of a deal. I feel like it should be left as is, and I feel like if there is going to be a reform, we should start taking in consideration how much we test students and how much pressure testing can cause on students. So